I never imagined that the car I worked so hard to buy would become the scene of the most devastating betrayal of my life. Sometimes the things we cherish the most become weapons used against us by the people we trust. This is the story of how I discovered my girlfriend of 3 years was cheating on me with my best friend since childhood, in the very car I had saved for years to purchase. My name is Michael. At 28, I felt like I was finally getting my life together, after years of working 2 jobs, as a graphic designer during the day and a bartender on weekends. I had managed to save enough to buy my dream car, a midnight blue Audi A5. It wasn't brand new, but it was in perfect condition, and I had fallen in love with it the moment I saw it at the dealership. The car represented everything I had worked for, a tangible symbol of my dedication and hard work. I had been dating Amber for 3 years. We met at a friend's housewarming party, and there was an instant connection. She was intelligent, ambitious, and had the most captivating laugh I'd ever heard. She worked as a paralegal at a prestigious law firm and was studying to become a lawyer herself. I admired her drive and determination. We moved in together after a year of dating, and things seemed perfect. We talked about marriage, kids, buying a house. The whole future stretched out before us. Then there was Dave, my best friend since we were 12 years old, sharing comic books and video games in middle school. We'd been through everything together: high school drama, college stress, first heartbreaks, and career struggles. He was the best man at my brother's wedding and would have been mine too when the time came. Dave worked as a personal trainer at a gym near our apartment. He was charismatic, fit, and always the life of any party. Women flocked to him, but I never once felt threatened by his charm or good looks. After all, he was like a brother to me. The three of us spent a lot of time together. Weekend trips, movie nights, dinners at our favorite restaurants. Amber and Dave got along well, which I was grateful for. My girlfriend and my best friend, the two most important people in my life, had formed their own friendship. At least, that's what I thought it was. Looking back, there were subtle signs that something wasn't right, but I was too blinded by trust to see them clearly. Amber began putting more effort into her appearance whenever Dave was coming over. She'd change outfits multiple times, apply extra makeup, and style her hair differently. I found it strange but dismissed it as her simply wanting to look good. Then there were the inside jokes between them that I wasn't privy to. Glances that lasted a second too long. Conversations that would abruptly stop when I entered the room, but every time a flicker of suspicion arose in my mind, I would push it away. These were the two people I trusted most in the world. Surely I was just being paranoid. Dave started showing up at our apartment more frequently, often when he knew I'd be working late. "I was just in the neighborhood," he'd say, or "I thought I'd drop off that book Amber wanted to borrow," reasonable explanations that I never questioned. My work schedule became increasingly demanding as I took on more graphic design projects to save for our future. I was putting in extra hours, sometimes not getting home until 9 or 10 at night. Amber was supportive, or so I thought. "I'm proud of how hard you work," she would tell me, kissing me on the forehead as I slumped exhausted onto the couch. In hindsight, I was creating the perfect opportunity for them. My absence was their opportunity. The Audi was my pride and joy. I kept it meticulously clean, inside and out. I would wash it every weekend, vacuum the interior, and make sure everything was in perfect order. Amber would tease me about my obsession, but I could tell she appreciated how much I cared for the things that mattered to me. I often let Amber use the car when she needed it. Her aging Honda was constantly in the shop, so it made sense for her to take the Audi when I was working from home or could take public transportation. Dave occasionally borrowed it too, when his truck was being serviced or when he needed to impress a date. I trusted them both with it, never thinking twice about handing over the keys. It was a Friday in late September when everything fell apart. I had a deadline for a major project and had been working non-stop for days. My eyes were strained from staring at the computer screen, and my back ached from hunching over my desk. I decided to take a break and run some errands, maybe pick up dinner and surprise Amber, who had texted earlier saying she would be working late at the firm. I went to the parking garage of our apartment building and got into my car. As I adjusted the driver's seat, which seemed to be pushed back further than I usually kept it. My hand brushed against something under the seat. I reached down, expecting to find a receipt or maybe some loose change. Instead, my fingers closed around a small piece of fabric. I pulled it out and froze. In my hand was a pair of black lace panties, Amber's black lace panties, the ones I had given her for her birthday just a month ago. My mind raced. Why would her underwear be under the seat of my car? She had used the car the day before to go to a study group for her law classes. Had she changed clothes in the car for some reason? But that didn't make sense. Why would she remove her underwear in the car, unless I felt sick? A cold sweat broke out across my forehead and my hands began to shake. No, I told myself, there had to be an explanation. Amber wouldn't do that to me. Not Amber, not in my car. But doubt had taken root and it was growing rapidly. I sat there, staring at the black lace in my hands, trying to come up with any explanation other than the obvious one. I couldn't. I pulled out my phone and called Amber. She didn't pick up. I texted her asking where she was. "Still at work, we'll be late, don't wait up," came the reply a few minutes later. I knew her firm was only a few blocks away, so I decided to drive there. I needed to see her, to show her what I had found, to hear her explanation face to face. But when I arrived at the law firm's building, the security guard informed me that most of the staff, including the paralegals, had left hours ago. Amber wasn't there. She had lied. My next call was to Dave. He answered on the third ring, his voice slightly breathless. "Hey man, what's up?" "Where are you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "At the gym, just finishing up a late session with a client." "Why?" I could hear music in the background and the sound of weights clanging. It sounded legitimate, but my trust was already shattered. "I need to talk to you, it's important." "Sure, I'll be done in about half an hour. Want to meet at O'Malley's for a beer?" "No," I said firmly. "I'm coming to the gym now." There was a slight pause. "All right," he said finally. "I'll be in the private training room at the back." I drove to the gym, the black lace panties now stuffed into my pocket, burning a hole through the fabric like a shameful secret. When I arrived, I showed my guest pass and made my way to the back of the facility where the private training rooms were located. Room 3 had Dave's name on the small plaque outside. I could hear voices inside, a man and a woman, laughing. I recognized both instantly. I had heard that laughter countless times before, at dinner tables, during movie nights, on weekend trips, my best friend and my girlfriend. I stood outside the door for a moment, my heart pounding in my chest. Part of me wanted to walk away, to pretend I hadn't discovered their betrayal. But I knew I couldn't live with that. I deserved the truth, no matter how painful. I opened the door without knocking. They weren't in the middle of anything explicit, not at that moment anyway, but they might as well have been. Amber was sitting on a weight bench, wearing workout clothes I had never seen before, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. Dave was standing unnervingly close to her, one hand on her shoulder. The intimacy between them was palpable. They both looked up as I entered, their smiles fading immediately. "Michael," Amber said, standing up quickly, "what are you doing here?" I pulled the black panties from my pocket and held them up. "I found these under the seat of my car." "Care to explain?" The color drained from Amber's face. Dave took a step back, running a hand through his hair, a nervous habit he'd had since we were kids. "Michael, I can explain," Amber started, but I cut her off. "Explain what? How my girlfriend's underwear ended up under the seat of my car, the car that both of you have been borrowing." "The car that I worked 2 jobs for years to afford." Dave stepped forward. "Man, listen." "No, you listen," I snapped, my voice rising. "I trusted you, both of you. You were my best friend since middle school, Dave, and you, Amber, I thought we were building a future together." "We are," she pleaded, tears forming in her eyes. "This. It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" I demanded. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like my girlfriend and my best friend have been fucking in my car behind my back." The raw vulgarity of my words made them both wince. Good. I wanted them to feel a fraction of the pain that was tearing me apart. "It just happened," Dave said lamely. "We didn't plan it. Just happened. What, multiple times? Because those panties didn't just magically appear under my car seat, and you two didn't just happen to be here together right now when Amber told me she was working late." Amber was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "Michael, please, we can work through this." "It was a mistake," I laughed bitterly. A mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill or buying the wrong brand of coffee. Sleeping with my best friend in my car is a choice. A series of choices, actually. Every time you lied about where you were, every time you took my keys knowing what you were going to do, I turned to Dave, and you. I would have taken a bullet for you, man. I trusted you with everything, my home, my car, my girlfriend, and this is how you repay that trust. Dave couldn't look me in the eye. I'm sorry, he mumbled. I never meant to hurt you. But you did, I said. Both of you did, and for what? Some cheap thrill? Was it exciting, sneaking around behind my back? Was it fun, betraying someone who loved you? Neither of them answered. The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by Amber's quiet sobs. How long? I finally asked. How long has this been going on? They exchanged a glance, and my stomach churned. That single look confirmed that this wasn't a one-time thing. 2 months, Amber admitted quietly. 2 months, while I was working extra hours to save for our future, a future that included a wedding ring I had been pricing out. They had been carrying on an affair, in my car, in our apartment, probably, God knows where else. I'm done, I said, my voice surprisingly calm, with both of you. Amber, I'll be staying at a hotel tonight. I expect you to have your things out of the apartment by Sunday. Dave, lose my number. If I ever see you again, it'll be too soon. I turned to leave, but Amber grabbed my arm. Michael, please, we can fix this. I love you. I gently removed her hand. No, you don't. People who love each other don't do this. I deserve better than both of you. And with that, I walked out, leaving them standing in the training room, the black lace panties dropped on the floor between them, a tawdry symbol of their betrayal. I did check into a hotel that night. I couldn't bear the thought of returning to the apartment we had shared, the bed we had slept in. Everything would remind me of her, of them, of their betrayal. I turned off my phone after the first dozen calls and texts from both of them. Amber begging for forgiveness, Dave trying to explain. I didn't want to hear it. Their words meant nothing to me now. The next morning, I went to a coffee shop and tried to collect my thoughts. The barista asked if I was okay. Apparently, I looked as terrible as I felt. I hadn't slept more than an hour or two, my eyes were red from crying, and I hadn't bothered to change my clothes. I called my brother Mark and told him what had happened. Without hesitation, he offered me his guest room for as long as I needed it. He lived about an hour outside the city, which seemed perfect, far enough away to avoid running into either Amber or Dave. When I arrived at Mark's house, he took one look at me and pulled me into a tight hug. I broke down in his arms, sobbing like a child. He didn't say anything, just let me cry it out. His wife, Sarah, made us dinner, but I could barely eat. The thought of food made my stomach turn. I should have seen it coming, I said later that night as Mark and I sat on his back porch nursing beers. There were signs. Don't do that to yourself, Mark said firmly. This isn't on you, they made their choices. But why? Was I not enough? Did I work too much? Should I have? Stop, Mark interrupted. You can drive yourself crazy with the should-haves and what-ifs. The simple truth is that they betrayed you. That's on them, not you. I knew he was right, but it didn't make the pain any less intense. I felt like I had lost not just my girlfriend, but also a piece of my identity. Who was I, if not the man who loved Amber? Who was I, if not Dave's best friend? These relationships had defined me for so long that without them, I felt adrift. I stayed at Mark's for a week, mostly sleeping, occasionally helping him with projects around the house to keep my mind occupied. Sarah was incredible, making sure I ate regular meals and giving me space when I needed it. Eventually, I knew I had to face reality. I couldn't hide at my brother's house forever. I needed to sort out the apartment, my belongings, my life. I returned to the city the following Saturday. Amber had texted that she had moved out, leaving her key under the mat, as I had instructed. I steeled myself before entering the apartment, unsure of what emotional landmines awaited me. The place felt different without her things. Emptier, but somehow less suffocating. She had taken most of her belongings, but had left a few items, a plant I had given her, some books we had bought together, a framed photo of us that had sat on the bedside table. These weren't oversights, they were deliberate, her way of leaving a piece of herself behind, perhaps hoping I would reach out. I gathered these items into a box, intending to donate them or throw them away. I didn't want these reminders of her, of us. As I was packing up the last of her things, my phone rang. It was Dave. I had unblocked their numbers but had been ignoring their calls and texts. This time, though, I decided to answer. "What do you want?" I asked coldly. "Just to talk," he said. He sounded terrible, his voice rough as if he hadn't slept in days. "Good, we have nothing to talk about." "Please, Michael, 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking." In person. I should have hung up, I should have told him to go to hell, but something in me needed closure, needed to look him in the eye one more time. "Fine, the coffee shop on 8th Street, tomorrow at noon. 5 minutes, then I never want to see you again." "Thank you," he said, sounding genuinely relieved. "I'll be there." I hung up without saying goodbye and sat down heavily on the couch, our couch. I wondered if they had ever been together on this very piece of furniture when I was working late. The thought made me feel sick all over again. The coffee shop was busy when I arrived the next day, exactly at noon. I had chosen a public place deliberately. I didn't trust myself to be alone with Dave. I wasn't a violent person, but the rage that simmered just beneath my grief was unpredictable. Dave was already there, sitting at a table in the corner, 2 coffees in front of him. He looked awful, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, wearing a wrinkled T-shirt that might have been the same one he'd had on at the gym the week before. I felt a flicker of satisfaction at his disheveled appearance. I sat down across from him without a greeting, not touching the coffee he had bought me. "Thank you for coming," he began. "I know I don't deserve—" "4 minutes," I interrupted, looking pointedly at my watch. "That's all you have left," he nodded, swallowing hard. "I'm not going to make excuses. What we did was unforgivable. I betrayed your trust in the worst possible way." "Tell me something I don't know," I said coldly. "I'm going to therapy," he blurted out. "I've been going since that day, trying to figure out why I would hurt someone I care about so much, why I would risk our friendship for something so meaningless." "Meaningless?" I raised an eyebrow. 2 months doesn't sound meaningless to me, Dave. Sounds pretty fucking deliberate." He winced at my tone. "That's not what I meant. I meant that whatever was between Amber and me, it wasn't worth what I lost with you. Nothing would have been worth that." I leaned forward. "Then why did you do it? Seriously, I want to know. Was it because she was mine? Was it the thrill of sneaking around, or was it just because you could?" Dave looked down at his untouched coffee. "I don't know," he admitted quietly. "Maybe all of those things. Maybe I've always been jealous of you." That caught me off guard. "Jealous of me? You're the one with the perfect body, the charm, the women falling all over you. What could you possibly be jealous of? Your stability, your focus, your ability to commit to something and see it through, whether it's saving for that car or building a relationship with Amber. You always knew what you wanted and you worked for it. I've been drifting my whole life, moving from one thing to another, one person to another." I scoffed. "So you decided to take what was mine, to punish me for having my shit together." "No," he said quickly. "It wasn't conscious like that. It was, God, it sounds so pathetic. It was weakness, pure weakness." Amber started coming to the gym more often. We'd talk while she worked out, then we started getting smoothies after her sessions. One thing led to another and you ended up fucking my girlfriend in my car," I finished for him. "Spare me the details." Dave nodded miserably. "I know I can never make this right. I know our friendship is over. I needed you to know how sorry I am, how much I regret it." I studied him for a moment. He did look genuinely remorseful, but it didn't matter. Some betrayals cut too deep to ever heal. 3 people, Dave, 3 people in this world knew exactly how much that car meant to me. You, me, and Amber. It wasn't just transportation. It was years of sacrifice, of working myself to exhaustion. It was proof that I could achieve something significant through hard work and dedication, and you two turned it into your little love nest. Dave couldn't look me in the eye. "I know." "No, you don't know," I said, my voice rising slightly. "You don't know what it's like to sit in that car now, to hold that steering wheel and wonder if your hands were on it right after they were all over my girlfriend. You don't know what it's like to wonder if every surface in my apartment has been contaminated by your betrayal." A few people at nearby tables glanced our way, but I didn't care. "Your 5 minutes are up," I said, standing. "I hope the therapy helps you become less of a shitty human being, but don't contact me again. We're done." I walked out without looking back, leaving him sitting there with 2 cold coffees and, I hoped, a weight of regret that would take a long time to lift. While Dave seemed to accept that our friendship was over, Amber was more persistent. The calls and texts continued, sometimes angry, sometimes pleading, sometimes in the middle of the night when she was clearly drunk and emotional. "Please just talk to me," one text read. "I made a terrible mistake, but what we had was real. We can work through this." Another, "I miss you so much it physically hurts. Please give me another chance." And another, "I broke it off with Dave completely. It was never about him. It was a moment of weakness that spiraled out of control." I didn't respond to any of them. What was there to say? I couldn't unhear her laughter with Dave in that training room. I couldn't unsee the black lace panties in my hand. I couldn't unfeel the devastation of discovering their betrayal. 2 weeks after I had moved back into the apartment, there was a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Amber standing there, a small bouquet of flowers in her hand. For a moment, I considered not answering, but I knew she would just keep coming back until I faced her. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. She looked beautiful, even with puffy eyes and pale skin that suggested she hadn't been sleeping well. She was wearing the green dress I had always loved on her, another deliberate choice. "Michael," she said, her voice breaking on my name, "thank you for opening the door." "What do you want, Amber?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. I had cried enough tears over her. I wouldn't let her see how much I was still hurting. "I wanted to give you these," she said, holding out the flowers, blue hyacinths, my favorite, "and to apologize in person. What I did was inexcusable, but I love you, Michael. I've always loved you. What happened with Dave? It was the biggest mistake of my life." I took the flowers mechanically, not wanting to create a scene in the hallway by refusing them. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have slept with my best friend." "I know," she said, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I know that. I can't explain it. It was like I was a different person. Like I got caught up in something exciting and forbidden, and by the time I realized what I was risking, it had gone too far." "Too far," I repeated. "You mean like the multiple times you were with him in my car, or the lies about working late, or the study groups that never existed?" She flinched at each accusation. "Yes, all of it. I was selfish and thoughtless and, God, Michael, I would do anything to go back and undo it all." "But you can't," I said simply, "and I can't pretend it didn't happen. I can't look at you without seeing you with him. I can't trust anything you say anymore." "People make mistakes," she pleaded, "terrible mistakes, but they can change. They can earn back trust. Please, just give me a chance to show you how sorry I am, how much I want to make this right." I sighed deeply. "The thing is, Amber, this wasn't a mistake, it was a choice. Multiple choices made day after day. You chose to start something with Dave. You chose to lie to me. You chose to betray me in the most intimate way possible. Those weren't mistakes, they were decisions." She was crying openly now, mascara running down her cheeks just like that day in the gym. "I know, you're right, but people can make better decisions going forward. I would never, ever hurt you like that again." "Maybe not," I conceded, "but I would always be waiting for it to happen. I would question every late night at work, every text message, every time you borrowed the car. That's not a relationship, that's a prison of suspicion. Neither of us deserves to live like that." "So that's it?" she asked, her voice small. 3 years together and you're just done." "You were done first," I reminded her gently. "The moment you decided that whatever you felt for Dave was worth risking what we had together." She wiped at her tears with the back of her hand. "I still love you," she whispered. "I loved you too," I said, using the past tense deliberately. "But love isn't enough when the trust is gone. Please don't come here again, Amber. Don't call, don't text. We both need to move on." I closed the door before she could respond, then leaned back against it, still holding the hyacinths. I listened as her footsteps retreated down the hallway, followed by the sound of quiet sobbing that faded as she got further away. I looked at the flowers in my hand. They were beautiful, deep blue with a subtle fragrance. I walked to the kitchen, placed them gently in the trash, and then washed my hands, as if I could wash away the last traces of Amber from my life. My beautiful Audi had become tainted, a rolling reminder of their betrayal. I couldn't sit in it without imagining them together in those seats. I couldn't grip the steering wheel without wondering if her hands had clutched it while she was with him. Every surface, every inch of that car now felt contaminated. I tried to clean it, a deep, thorough cleaning that cost me nearly $300 at a premium detailing service. They steam cleaned the upholstery, sanitized every surface, even replaced the floor mats. But it didn't help. The stain of betrayal wasn't physical, it was etched into my mind. For weeks, I avoided driving whenever possible, taking public transportation or walking, even in bad weather. When I had to use the car, I would sit rigidly, touching as little as possible, as if their betrayal was contagious. One afternoon, about a month after the confrontation at the gym, I was sitting in my parked car outside my apartment, unable to bring myself to start the engine. An older man tapped on my window, startling me. "You okay in there?" he asked when I rolled down the window. "You've been sitting here for 20 minutes looking like you've seen a ghost." I managed a weak smile. "I'm fine." "Just thinking," he studied me for a moment. "Car trouble, I'm a retired mechanic, maybe I can help." I almost laughed at the irony. Not mechanical trouble, more emotional trouble with the car. Instead of backing away from my strange response, the man, Bob, as he later introduced himself, nodded knowingly. "Ah. Bad memories attached to this beauty, huh? Let me guess, ex-girlfriend." "Something like that," I admitted. "Mind if I sit?" he asked, gesturing to the passenger seat. I hesitated, then nodded. He walked around and got in beside me. "Nice car," he commented, looking around appreciatively. "Audi A5, right? 2018. 2017, I corrected automatically. "You know cars. Told you I was a mechanic for 40 years, mostly American makes, but I always admired German engineering." He ran a hand along the dashboard. "So what happened? She break your heart in this car?" I was surprised by his directness, but even more surprised to find myself answering. "My girlfriend and my best friend. They were together in this car behind my back." Bob whistled low. "Double betrayal. That's rough, son. No wonder you look like you'd rather be sitting on hot coals than in this fine vehicle." "I can't even sell it," I confessed. "The market's down right now and I'd take too much of a loss. Plus, it reminds me of how hard I worked to buy it. 2 jobs for almost 3 years. "That's dedication," Bob said, sounding impressed. "Not many young folks willing to work that hard for something they want these days." "Fat lot of good it did me," I said bitterly. "Now I can't even enjoy it." Bob was quiet for a moment, then said, "You know what your problem is?" "My girlfriend cheated on me with my best friend in my car," I suggested sarcastically. He chuckled. "Well, yes, there's that. But your real problem is that you're letting them take this from you too. They already took your relationship, your friendship, your trust. Now you're letting them take your car, the thing you worked so hard for." His words hit me like a slap. He was right. I was giving them power over yet another aspect of my life by allowing their actions to taint something I had once loved. "So what do?" I asked. "Reclaim it," Bob said simply. "Make new memories, drive the hell out of it, take a road trip, enjoy what you worked for. Don't let those two steal one more thing from you." We talked for a while longer. Bob told me about his own heartbreaks, a wife who left him after 20 years, a business partner who embezzled from their shop. "Life knocks you down sometimes," he said, "but staying down, that's a choice." After Bob left, I sat in the car thinking about what he had said. Then, for the first time in weeks, I started the engine, put on my favorite playlist, and just drove. No destination in mind, just the open road and the purr of the engine I had once loved so much. By the time I returned to the apartment 3 hours later, something had shifted. The car wasn't completely mine again, not yet, but it was a start. In the months that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life. I threw myself into my work, taking on challenging new projects that stretched my graphic design skills. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during my relationship with Amber, friends who rallied around me with support, distraction, and occasionally, tough love when I slid into self-pity. I started going to therapy myself, working through the trust issues that now colored my view of relationships. My therapist, Dr. Chen, helped me see that what Amber and Dave had done wasn't a reflection on me or my worth. Their choices were about their own weaknesses, not mine. "Betrayal like this often says more about the betrayer than the betrayed," she told me during one session. "People who are secure and content with themselves don't typically behave this way." "But how do I ever trust anyone again?" I asked her. "If the two people I trusted most could do this to me, what's to stop someone else from doing the same or worse?" "Trust isn't an all-or-nothing proposition," she explained. "It's earned incrementally, through consistent actions over time, and it's okay to be more cautious now, to look for red flags you might have missed before. That's not paranoia, that's wisdom born from experience. Slowly, I started to heal. I took Bob's advice and reclaimed my car, taking weekend drives to the coast or the mountains, creating new memories that began to overshadow the painful ones. I even went on a few dates, nothing serious, just coffee or dinner with women I met through friends or dating apps. I was upfront about my recent experience, not wanting to burden anyone with my ongoing healing process. About 6 months after the discovery of Amber's panties under my car seat, I ran into her at a grocery store. I had been dreading this moment, knowing that in a city of our size, it was inevitable that we would eventually cross paths. She looked good, healthier than the last time I had seen her, with a new, shorter haircut. She noticed me first, freezing in the produce section, an avocado clutched in her hand. "Michael," she said, and just that, my name on her lips, sent a complicated rush of emotions through me. Anger, sadness, longing, and something else I couldn't quite identify, something like relief. "Amber," I acknowledged with a nod. I was surprised by how calm I felt. The sight of her didn't devastate me as I had feared it would. She shifted awkwardly, still holding the avocado. "You look good," she said tentatively. "Thanks, you too," and it was true. Despite everything, I didn't wish her ill. "How have you been?" she asked. "Better," I said honestly. "Working a lot, driving a lot, you—" "I'm okay," she said. "I switched law firms. Needed a fresh start, and I'm still in therapy." An awkward silence fell between us. So much history, so many words said and unsaid, hanging in the air around the organic produce. "I think about you," she finally admitted. "About us, about what I threw away." I nodded, unsure how to respond. 6 months ago, I might have jumped at any hint that she still cared, that there might be a chance to rebuild what we had lost. But now I felt a strange sense of peace. "I hope you're finding what you need," I said sincerely. "I should go. Take care of yourself, Amber." As I turned to walk away, she called after me. "Michael, are you seeing anyone?" I paused, then turned back to face her. "Not seriously," I said. "I'm still figuring out who I am after everything, but I'm open to the possibility." Something like hope flickered across her face. "Maybe someday." I shook my head gently. "No, Amber, not us. Some things can't be fixed once they're broken, but I hope we both find happiness." And with that, I continued down the aisle, feeling lighter than I had in months. The encounter I had dreaded had come and gone, and I was still standing, still breathing, still moving forward. A week after seeing Amber at the grocery store, I made a decision. I requested 2 weeks off from work, the first real vacation I had taken in years, and planned a solo road trip in my Audi. I would drive up the coast, staying in small towns along the way, with no rigid itinerary or expectations. I packed light, just a duffel bag of clothes, my camera, and a few books. The night before I was set to leave, Dave texted me for the first time in months. "Heard you're taking some time off. Hope you find what you're looking for." I stared at the message, wondering who had told him about my plans. We still had mutual friends, I supposed. I debated ignoring him, but instead wrote back, "Thanks. Nothing more, nothing less." It wasn't forgiveness, but it wasn't hatred either. It was acknowledgement. I left at dawn, the rising sun painting the sky in shades of pink and gold as I drove out of the city. With each mile that passed, I felt the weight of the past months lifting. The open road ahead, the purr of the engine beneath me, the freedom to go wherever I wanted, it was exhilarating. I stopped in a small coastal town for breakfast, eating at a diner where the waitress called me Han and refilled my coffee without asking. I drove along winding coastal roads, stopping occasionally to take photos of the ocean crashing against rocky shores. I checked into a quaint bed and breakfast run by an elderly couple who had been married for 53 years. "What's your secret?" I asked them over homemade apple pie that evening. The husband, a weathered man named Harold, glanced at his wife with a twinkle in his eye. "Communication," he said, "and separate bathrooms." His wife, Mabel, swatted him playfully. "The real secret," she said, "is choosing each other every day. Love isn't just a feeling, it's a decision you make over and over again." I thought about her words as I fell asleep that night in a room decorated with nautical antiques. Amber and Dave had made their decisions, and now I was making mine, choosing myself, my healing, my future. The next day, I drove inland, toward a national park I had always wanted to visit. The landscape changed from coastal cliffs to dense forests, the air growing cooler as I ascended into the mountains. I hiked trails, took hundreds of photos, and sat by pristine lakes reflecting the clouds above. At a campground one night, I met a group of travelers from various parts of the world, all on their own journeys of discovery. We shared stories around a campfire, and I found myself talking about Amber and Dave, about the betrayal and the aftermath. But for the first time, I could tell the story without feeling the knife twist in my gut. It was becoming just that, a story, something that had happened to me but no longer defined me. "You know what I've learned in my travels," said a woman from Australia named Jess. "Every shitty experience is just training for something better. The universe doesn't throw anything at us that we can't handle." "That's a nice thought," I said, not entirely convinced. "It's more than a thought," she insisted. "It's a choice. You can choose to see what happened as a tragedy that ruined your life or as a painful but necessary step toward something greater." I pondered her words as I continued my journey. Was there a purpose to the pain I had endured? Could betrayal be a gateway to growth? On the 10th day of my trip, I was driving through a small arts community when my car suddenly made an ominous clanking sound and the engine light came on. I managed to pull into a service station just as the car shuddered to a stop. "Timing belt," said the mechanic after a brief inspection. "Could have been worse, but I'll need to order the part. Won't be here until tomorrow afternoon at the earliest." I resigned myself to spending the night in town, checking into the only motel and then walking to a nearby cafe to kill time. The cafe doubled as an art gallery, with local artists' work displayed on the walls. I was studying a particularly striking landscape painting when a voice beside me said, "It's even more beautiful in person." I turned to see a woman about my age with curly dark hair and bright hazel eyes. "You've been there?" I asked, gesturing to the painting of a mountain lake. "I painted it," she said with a smile, extending her hand. "I'm Elena." "Michael," I replied, shaking her hand, "and it's incredible work." We ended up talking for hours. Elena was a local artist and part-time barista at the cafe. She had moved to the small town 5 years earlier after a bad breakup, seeking a fresh start. I told her about my journey, about the car breaking down, about the circumstances that had led to my impromptu road trip. "Sounds like the universe is conspiring to keep you here another day," she said with a laugh. "Maybe it is," I agreed. The next day, Elena offered to show me around town while I waited for my car to be fixed. We explored local galleries, hiked to a nearby waterfall, and shared stories over lunch at her favorite bistro. There was an ease between us, a comfort that didn't demand anything. When our hands brushed accidentally as we walked, I felt a spark of something I hadn't experienced in a long time, possibility. "Would it be too forward to ask for your number?" I asked as we stood outside the mechanic's shop, my car now repaired and ready to go. Elena smiled. "Not at all. I'd like to know if you make it back in one piece." We exchanged numbers, and I promised to call when I returned from my trip. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of her in my rearview mirror, waving goodbye. The image stayed with me as I continued my journey, not as a haunting reminder of betrayal, but as a hopeful sign of new beginnings. I returned from my road trip feeling refreshed and renewed. The Audi, which had once been a symbol of my pain, had become a partner in my healing journey. I had put over 2,000 miles on it, created countless new memories, and even found a connection with someone new. Elena and I texted regularly after I returned, and a month later, I drove back to her town for a proper date. Our relationship developed slowly, with neither of us rushing. We were both cautious, both carrying scars from past relationships. But there was an honesty between us from the start, a foundation of trust that grew stronger with each conversation, each visit. One evening, about 3 months after we had started dating, Elena asked about my car. "You mentioned it had some painful associations," she said as we drove along the coast. "Is that still true?" I thought about it for a moment. "No," I said, realizing it was true. "Not anymore, I've reclaimed it." "How?" she asked. I told her about Bob, the retired mechanic who had given me such wise advice, about the road trip that had led me to her. About the gradual healing that had come from making new memories, from refusing to let Amber and Dave's betrayal define my relationship with something I had worked so hard to achieve. It's funny, I said, how something as simple as finding a pair of panties under a car seat can completely upend your life. For a while, I thought it was the worst thing that could have happened to me. Now I'm not so sure. Elena raised an eyebrow. You're glad your girlfriend cheated on you with your best friend. No, I laughed. That still sucked, but it forced me to confront some hard truths about them, about myself, about what I really want in relationships. If it hadn't happened, I might still be with Amber, planning a future with someone who could betray me so easily. I might still count Dave as my closest friend, never knowing what he was capable of. And you might never have taken that road trip, Elena added, never broken down in my little town. Exactly, I said, reaching over to take her hand. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best changes. 6 months after discovering Amber's panties under my car seat, I saw her and Dave together at a restaurant. They were sitting at a corner table, heads bent close in conversation. I felt a momentary pang, not of jealousy or anger, but of something like pity. They had found their way back to each other, it seemed. I wondered if they could ever truly trust one another, knowing what they were both capable of. I didn't approach them, didn't make my presence known. Instead, I returned to my own table, where Elena was waiting after a trip to the restroom. She smiled as I sat down, a smile that reached her eyes and warmed something deep within me. Everything okay? She asked, noticing my expression. Everything's perfect, I said and meant it. The betrayal had nearly broken me. The discovery of those black lace panties had shattered my world in an instant. But sitting there with Elena, I realized that sometimes things fall apart so better things can fall into place. The car I had worked so hard for had become not just a mode of transportation, but a vehicle for transformation, carrying me from despair to possibility, from betrayal to new beginnings. As we left the restaurant, I held the door open for Elena, then paused to look back at Amber and Dave one last time. They hadn't noticed me, too absorbed in their own drama. I silently wished them well, then turned away, keys to my Audi in hand, ready to drive toward whatever came next. 1 year to the day after finding those panties, I proposed to Elena. Not because I felt it was time or because it was expected, but because I couldn't imagine my life without her. We were sitting on a cliffside overlooking the ocean, the same spot where she had painted the landscape that had first caught my eye in the cafe. Are you sure? She asked after saying yes, tears glistening in her eyes. After everything that happened with Amber, I'm sure, I said, holding her close. What happened with Amber taught me what love isn't. You've shown me what it is. We drove back to the city in my Audi, the car that had once been tainted by betrayal, now a chariot carrying us toward our shared future. As we crossed the bridge into the city, lights twinkling all around us, I thought about how far I had come. The day I found those black lace panties under my car seat felt like a lifetime ago. The pain, the anger, the sense of betrayal, they had all faded, replaced by gratitude for the lessons learned and the strength gained. I had lost a girlfriend and a best friend, but I had found myself. And in finding myself, I had found someone who loved me for exactly who I was. Sometimes, the most devastating discoveries lead to the most beautiful destinations. And sometimes, what seems like an ending is really just the beginning of a better story.